Hello, I'm Axel Hombach, hypnotist from Cologne, and this is the second Hypno-Talk, which I started about 2 months ago, the first one with Jean-Michel Andrews in Heidelberg, where I'm currently again. Hypno-Talk is a very loose series of casual talks with some special hypnotists that live throughout the world, and Jean-Michel Andrews happens to be the first one and the second one, and let's see, perhaps even the third one of the Hypnotalks. The idea was created out of some good wine, some good food, and rescuing the world and spreading the idea of hypnotism. Sean, I'm very glad you are here again with me, and you are the first and the second. Yeah, we've already talked a lot about your plans, because last time we already talked a little bit about that you are going to leave Germany and that you had still some DVDs left, which would you sell with some handwritten notes to make the customer experience better. We talked about some interesting marketing ideas with these little love notes with a heart as an eye dot.
No, we don't do that.
No hearts. We don't do that, but some people do. So your plans have now become more concrete. You know where you are going. It's Augusta in Georgia.
Right.
Georgia, USA, not Georgia in...
Not the Georgian Republic, no.
Yeah.
No.
Although I've heard it's a very beautiful country, but that's beside the point. And you're going to the country or place where there's great food, great barbecues, where you can probably do a lot of hypnosis. As far as it looks, you will be like the local matador.
Well, it looks like, I don't think there is a hypnosis office in the Augusta, Georgia area. So I may be the only hypnotherapist there, which is okay.
Yeah, you can live with that.
I could live with that. Yeah. I mean, competition is a great thing, but lack of competition is sometimes a good thing too. But yeah, so I'll be reopening my hypnotherapy office. This will be Augusta Family Hypnosis, and it'll be in the Augusta, Georgia area, the same town where the Masters is played. I'm not a golfer.
Okay, so the Golf Masters.
Yeah. And so I guess I've done golf hypnosis and I've done sports hypnosis. So I think that may be a large part of the business there, in addition to the usual weight loss, smoking, and stress reduction. So yeah, I'm very excited. I have been shopping around for new offices, and I found some really good locations. And we're very excited. Also, I will be reopening the Atlantic Hypnosis Institute. So the hypnosis school will reopen. I think my first class is in December of 2016 or January of 2017. Let me just check that.
You've already scheduled your
I've already scheduled
training,
class.
local training.
Yes.
What you said is that you are also reopening your hypnotherapy practice.
Yes.
I've met you when you came here to Germany very soon after you arrived, and for the time in Germany you had completely stopped hypnotherapy, doing only non-profit sessions.
I was actually only doing sessions when it was something very interesting that I wanted to try a new technique on. But no, I have not been practicing hypnotherapy here in Germany. But I've continued to teach around the world.
You have been traveling a lot.
Yeah.
Have you been more abroad teaching hypnosis than staying here in Heidelberg?
Yes. I've spent more time in Heidelberg than on the road.
Okay.
But I've been teaching about 12 classes a year.
Okay.
And
so each month
doing a lot of travel.
Yeah.
At least one class a month. And that schedule is about to get ramped up since I'm leaving Europe. So in October, I have 3 classes that I'm teaching in October, and I think I've got September I've got 2 classes.
Only, huh?
Yeah, so yeah, it's getting very busy just because I'm leaving.
And that you said that you have only done very little hypnosis or hypnotherapy, and you are going to reopening. How important is it for you to reopen instead of doing only training?
Well, I think it's important for a hypnosis instructor to keep his or her hand in the business. I think that it's good because it keeps your stories fresh. You might be teaching something about pain management, and you can say, well, only last month I worked with someone who had migraine headaches, and this is the technique that I used. That's a lot better and a lot fresher than saying to the student, well, I remember 14 years ago I had this guy with cluster headaches, and as I recall, I think I did this with him. So it's much better to have the stories be fresh. Also, I think that as a hypnotist, you are more on the top of your game, or at the top of your game when you're continuing to do hypnotherapy. I tell people that I do my best hypnotherapy when I'm doing a lot of hypnotherapy. For instance, back when I had a practice in Maryland and another one in Virginia, I was seeing several clients a day. And when I was seeing that many clients a day, when someone would come in with a particular issue, it just seemed as though I was in the flow, and I knew the exact thing that I needed to use to work with that person, and it was usually right. Whereas if I was only seeing a client every week or so, you feel a little bit stale, you feel a bit out of practice. So the more hypnotherapy you do, I think the better hypnotherapy you do.
What reminds me a little bit about what I often get as a feedback in my workshops is that I tell how it is in practice, how it is in reality. So the feedback goes in that direction that some workshops, they teach only the ideal situation when you work with clients, how it should be. And I always put in where the difficulties are, for example, and what to watch out for, and where to be careful with, and how you can tweak it that way or that way. So I always put in my own experience with my clients, and I usually don't take the best clients. I take the clients that usually produce where you think, what can I do now? Where's the next step? And then I offer solutions for that. Is it, from your point of view, would you agree that only if you have a good practice background, or that you practice and teach at the same time, that you have, as you said, always fresh examples?
I think it's important. Another thing that I've seen in the hypnosis industry over the past 10 years, say, and I've had many jobs. Hypnosis is not my first career now, and more than in any other industry I've been associated with, hypnosis tends to have a lot of people who take their first hypnosis course and then they want to teach, and I can understand why they want to. I mean, they're so excited about hypnosis and the power of the human mind and the things that you can do with your hypnosis, that they want to go out and spread the word and teach. The problem, though, is that if they don't have the clinical experience before they teach, it makes it far more difficult to do that job. For instance, you said when you're teaching a particular technique, you like to rely on real life situations that you've seen, and things that can go wrong, and things that you need to adjust for. And because you can bring that experience to the class, it's a far more useful to the students. If you say, well, when you have a phobia, this is what you do to work with the phobia, and you don't have examples, real life examples to show what you've done, you just say, well, experts say you do this, and that's not really the best. The best is when you can draw on your own experience and your own mistakes, so that your students don't have to make those mistakes all over again. So yeah, it's important to have the clinical experience.
Oh yeah, and now that you say that, what I also do is that I in my workshops, I regularly admit that it's not always as easy as I tell it, and that sometimes I don't know that. I know that something went not as it should, but I have to think myself, and I don't always have immediately an answer. And I found that that when I talk to experienced hypnotists, they are much more relaxed about their own, not say failures, but difficulties, because that's an everyday life. If you see, let's say, 10, 15, 20 clients a week, which I think should a good hypnotist do, then you get the experience, you stay calm, and not everything is going right. But if you talk, what I found sometimes to very fresh hypnotists, full of enthusiasm, full of the fire that probably others used to have, when everything was glory and good, and that it often is played as everything works perfectly. And as soon as you talk with experienced ones, it's not all gold. And you can transfer that in the workshops, and it makes it real.
The more I do hypnosis, the more I realize that there's so much more I don't know. When I was new, I knew it all, and now that I've been
I remember that feeling.
And now I know that I don't. I'm not ashamed to say I don't know, and it doesn't hurt my ego to say I don't know. Because you know some things, and it's just so funny, because there were so many things that I used to believe about hypnosis that I no longer believe. And another funny thing about hypnosis is, I've worked with thousands of clients, but someone will ask, a student will ask, well, what about this particular problem? And once in a while, I have to say, I've never worked with that. It's funny, because the majority of the work we know is weight loss and smoking. That's the majority of the stuff. So if anyone has a question about weight loss, I can probably pull some experience out of my past and say, okay, I've seen this, and this is what I did, or smoking, or something like that. But if someone says, have you ever worked with fear of parakeets? Fear of little pet bird. Well, actually, I have worked with that. Fear of fear of windows. Okay, say someone had I would have to say, no, I have not. But this is the way I deal with fears, and this is exactly what I would do if someone came in with a phobia of windows. But there are some things that, no, I just have not worked with. And the other funny thing about hypnosis is, I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes you get someone in with a very odd problem, and you work with them, and the next day you get 2 more people with that same problem that you've never seen before.
No, not that way.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I've had that. They've come in droves. I know people who have worked with, let me think, trying to think of something that I haven't worked with a lot. Fear of dogs. I've only had, probably 3 or 4 people that came in with fear of dogs. But I have colleagues that have worked with 20 or 30 people with fear of dogs. However, they have never worked with somebody with fear of vomiting, which I have, you know. but it's kind of funny because you can go most of your career and someone will walk through the door with an issue that you've never worked on before, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah. And with the many years of experience you have now, I realized how relaxed you are when you have seen thousands of clients. It is a completely different feeling when you haven't reached 100 yet, or even if you haven't done 50 yet, and you are desperate to be successful. If you see everything as a failure that doesn't work as it should, and you're sitting there, you haven't done a lot of practice in the last, let's say, 3 years, but at the same time you have so much experience, you are so relaxed about it.
Well, I think once you pass a few hundred or maybe 1,000 clients, you get to the point where you do know how to deal with most things. And so then if you were to lay off for a year or a few years, I don't think it hurts you as much. Although I do really believe that I'm sharpest when I'm seeing lots of clients. I really do believe that. I mean, I can still handle it. If someone comes in and they want to lose weight or get rid of a phobia or something like that, yeah, I can still do it. But when I'm doing it every day with several clients, I'm sharper. I'm better.
It's like when you make sports. It's like being in the train. So a good piano player or violinist, they practice that also every day.
Yeah.
And so good thing is if you teach, that's what I gather, and I would support that when you teach, you should have your practice going.
Oh, absolutely.
And you should not be a part-time practitioner, but a full-time practitioner, doing trainings, workshops as an add-on and as not your central way of income.
I think that's best. But one of the things that most people don't realize, and traveling around the world, I've discovered some things. And one of the things is that most hypnotists are part-time. There are, I don't know what the percentage is, but actually I did see a survey a few years ago. I should look that up and see.
Should be over 80%, huh?
Over 80% of them are part-time, yeah. And when I say part-time, you have different ones. You have some people that see a couple clients a day, and then you have some people that see a couple clients a month or a year.
Yeah.
And that they're also part-time. Very few full-time hypnotists out there. And you know, some of that is through choice. Some people, they're retired or semi-retired, and they choose to only see, a few clients a month, and that's fine. Some of them have a spouse that is the breadwinner, so they don't need to.
Very often,
and maybe they could make a go of it as a full-time hypnotist, but they don't have to, and they choose not to, and that's fine too. But the majority of hypnotists are part-time, and when you're full-time, you do learn a lot more, and you do become more fluid in your methodology. And so, I mean, if I was going to go for hypnotherapy, I would probably go to somebody who is full-time, simply because I know, in my experience, when I'm seeing lots of clients, I'm on my game.
It would be the same question, I guess, that would you go to a part-time dentist, or would you go to a full-time dentist?
Good point. A part-time dentist. Oh my gosh. No, I don't think I would do that.
And would you go to a dentist who has one client per week or per month, or one that has so much routine that you come in, he knows what he does, and his subconscious mind is so trained to do, and the habits are really well established. What you said earlier is what I've experienced. When I started, and I knew it all, I had maybe 1 or 2 clients per month, and I was desperate to have more. And since at some point when I started to see more than 10 clients per week, so as an average, then I really started to develop the habits. Then if someone came in, I was no longer kind of nervous. And the nervousness was there, although I believed I knew it all, of course, and nothing could surprise me. And every time I did something that was not, where I didn't know what to do next, I became, I sweated somehow. And as soon as I had, the 10 is a rough number, 10 per week, as soon as that was reached, it became routine.
And that's important. You greet your client and you show them into the room and you explain hypnosis to them in a very matter-of-fact way. You exude confidence. They can tell that you've done this a lot. And when they can tell that you've done it a lot, their confidence in your ability to be successful for them is raised. And your outcomes are going to be better because they have more confidence in you, because you have more prestige. So but it takes a while, and you need to work with a lot of clients. And that's another thing that young hypnotists don't realize, and that is your real education in hypnosis begins when you open your office. That's when you really learn stuff. And I've learned more just from working with clients than I've learned in any class that I've taken. And I've taken some really good classes, and I continue to take classes. I was in a class just 2 weeks ago, and I will take hypnosis classes, and I go to the conventions, and I sit in on the seminars and learn. I don't stop learning. And I think that's good, but really where I learned was from my clients.
And probably the clients that were not as they should be in the manual.
Oh, right, it's never, there are so many different things that can happen during a session, and that's interesting. It's you don't get bored doing hypnotherapy. It's a great way to learn by working with clients, and as you work with more, you feel more confident. When I do a lot of age regressions, and I think my first 200 or 300 age regressions were scary. I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen, because you don't know what's going to happen in an age regression. You could have an enormous abreaction, or you could have nothing and have to draw it out, and but I was very, very frightened of age regression for my first at least 200, maybe 300. Then I got to the point where I had seen almost every kind of reaction that I could see, and so age regressions then became pretty routine. Now I don't, it doesn't bother me.
When you talk about age regression, does it always work?
No, it doesn't. Nothing we do always works. That's why I use a lot of NLP in my sessions. I also use NLP to shortcut different processes. Like, for instance, forgiveness. I use an NLP technique to get forgiveness that gets it immediately. And I learned it from going to a class with a fellow named Michael Bennett, and he taught this really superior forgiveness routine, and it works great for me. And I don't have to worry about Fritz Perl's empty chair and all that. I don't bother with that, and I get forgiveness almost every time. So, but age regression, you have to do it, but But you have to do it a lot before. I mean, if you're not scared when you do your first age regression, I don't think you belong in this business.
Yeah, I wasn't afraid of my first, because I believed I knew it all. I believed it was so easy and it would work. And in fact, my first, let's say, 10 age regressions went smoothly.
And you weren't frightened? Because I was.
Not at all, because I believed
you knew it all.
I knew it all. And then it no longer worked that smoothly. And I thought, what's going wrong? And then I started panicking before that. Oh gosh, will it happen this time, or won't it work? And
that's kind of a common thing to happen with a new hypnotist.
Yeah, and I remember that Dave Bellman, right? I believe either he writes it in his book or it's in his tapes, that one of his doctors say everything worked fine, and he almost gets angry, shouting at him, I didn't say you to do that, and you are not yet ready, you have to fail in the beginning. He also said that failing in the beginning is better than having success in the beginning, because when you have success in the beginning and then you fail, that's more destructive than working your way up and being committed. And is that something that you would subscribe to?
It's going to depend on the personality. I mean, some people, if they do have a lot of failure in the beginning, it crushes them and they can't go on. But some people, having the failure, it just, they do learn from it, and they don't get discouraged. But so I think it depends on the personality. I think it's nice to have a little success in the beginning. For instance, when you hypnotize your first person, that's a thrill. And you don't want to try with 6 people before you get your first one, because you probably will stop after 3. So I think a mixture of failure and success is nice. My personal preference is not to fail for the first time. I like it when I have success with the first time I do something. I'll have some failures and I'll learn from them, but it's a mix. But it's funny though, because that's typical of a new hypnotist. You do something and it works and it works and it works and it doesn't work. It's like, oh, what's going on here? It didn't work. Is it going to work this time? I don't know. And of course it fails. Maybe because you made the same mistake, or maybe because it was made worse by your lack of confidence because you had that failure, and then maybe it fails again. I mean, I had this happen with my Bellman Induction. I hypnotized people left and right, no problem. Bellman, boom, down they go. And then it didn't work. And I didn't know why. And then it worked and worked, and then it didn't work. And then it started not working consistently, and I didn't realize what I was doing wrong. And there were many things that I was doing wrong. And so I set out to find out the best way to do the Bellman Induction, and did a lot of research, and that's how I hooked up with Colonel Bellman. And in my quest to find out how to do the Bellman Induction really, really well. And so now, I don't remember the last time the Bellman Induction didn't work. I just don't remember. But if it doesn't, I just roll right into an instant induction, and the person goes into hypnosis. But yeah, that's kind of funny when things are working and then they're not working, and you have to try and figure out what you've done to make this not work without destroying your confidence.
Oh yeah. So one of the worst experiences for me was, for months everything had been going fine, and just when I started the live tests with HDI in London, it was Sharon, Dr. John Butler's wife, who did the live interviews. And just when they began, I had 2 weeks where no hypnosis worked. Nothing worked. and I felt a little bit, let's say carefully, desperate.
Yeah.
And then it started to work again. And that's been a few years since it happened. But it really took me a lot of energy and effort not to despair at that moment. Because for one thing, I don't like so many failures. And being in one of the most important tests from my point of view, and starting that with a series of not working, that's not so good for the self-image.
No, it's not. And a lack of confidence is something that I see so much in hypnotists, and not just brand new ones. Hypnotists that have been doing it for a few years.
Yeah.
More than any line of work that I've experienced, hypnosis is a difficult thing to gain confidence in.
Yeah.
I've actually run a couple of classes strictly on confidence for hypnotists, and they need it.
Yeah. One thing that I learned back in London was that there are especially 10 personality traits that every good hypnotist should develop. That's in Gilboyne's class where I learned that. And I also teach that now as a workshop. Most important for me is that it's not only one of the most important things is that you have to install the belief in your client that you can handle him. And there are a lot of talks about how you raise expectation, etc. But from my point of view is the most important thing is that you work on your own personality, you develop your own personality, and that you come to terms with your own weak points and develop them. And one of the things that I also learned in these 10 traits of the successful hypnotist is that respect for the client is one of the most important things, which I sometimes have the impression, it's not only with hypnotists, also with others, that most people don't really understand respect towards the other. That you separate what they do from the person, and that you regard, that you value the person that sits in front of you, that comes to you, is looking for help, is looking for someone who is strong enough to deal with the despair that's within him. And this is something that is, sometimes I have the impression those character traits are very underdeveloped, or that they don't regard it or taken into account in trainings, for example.
Well, I think most of the people that get into hypnosis have a genuine desire to help people.
Yeah.
And that's a very good thing. And if the hypnotist does not have that trait, that's kind of hard to learn. I mean, most people get into hypnosis in their 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
Most hypnotists do not start training when they're 18. That's extremely rare.
Yeah, I started when I was 14.
Yeah, 14.
How old were you? Do you remember?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer, because I thought I was a hypnotist back when I was studying NLP in 1987, but I wasn't a good hypnotist. Now I'm not sure I was even a hypnotist, but I thought I was. Okay, and then I guess it was about 2005 when I really concentrated on hypnosis. So we're only talking 11 years ago. Before then, I thought I was a hypnotist, but I really wasn't. I was simply an NLP guy who thought he was a hypnotist.
Yeah, that's how I started about 15 years ago.
But yeah, it's I enjoy it. Oh, but getting back to the caring and the respect for the client and that sort of thing. Because most people come to hypnosis in their 40s or their 50s, you're pretty much the way you're going to be by the time. At the age of 40, you're not going to change very much. I can remember back when I was, your core qualities, they're not going to change very much. I remember when I was working for the government years ago, and I was a brand new supervisor, and I was going to set the world on fire, and I was going to build my team, and my team were all going to be hard chargers, and we were just going to change the world. And then, then I realized that, you know what? If somebody is on your team and they're in their 40s and they're not a hard worker and they don't do good work, you're not going to change that person. They're not going to become a harsh charger. They're not going to become the Russians used to call them hero workers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
These are the guys that always over-fulfill the plan and you know, produce so much. And no, if somebody is lazy and not interested at 40, you're not going to change that person. It's just, you might tweak them around the edges, but basically that's the way they are. And the best supervisor in the world is probably not going to be able to change that person. So I think that hypnotists who have a genuine desire to help people, I think that's great. But if somebody gets into hypnosis and that's not their desire, that's not a good thing. That's not a good indicator.
That's probably the same reason why they didn't like their last job. If you don't burn for hypnosis, want to help people,
right,
want to make the world a better place, and want to take your own ego back if you don't burn for that, if you reach that age, it's difficult to do.
It is. And I guess I would say that if you're thinking about becoming a hypnotist and you've had maybe 2 or 3 other jobs, 2 or 3 other careers, and you didn't like any of them, you're not going to like hypnosis. You're not going to be happy because some people are happy. As I said, I had many jobs, and almost all of them were good. And almost all of my bosses were nice, and I respected them, and I had a lot of good jobs. So it made sense that I was going to like hypnosis because I'm generally a happy person.
Yeah.
But if you're generally an unhappy person, it's hard to immediately get happy in your new career.
That is something. I used to be a very sarcastic person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, you didn't know me then. You didn't know me then, and I had this hypnosis experience when I was in London, and I went through the forgiveness process. Since then, I really love forgiveness work. It was like within, let's say, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, it was as if about 100 kilo were taken off my shoulders. The other day, people asked me from the course what had happened. I seemed taller. Until then, I
used to do that. I want to be taller.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I measured it. I only felt and it appeared.
Yeah.
And what I also realized is up until then, I was quiet. I was serious looking. And from that moment on, I talked to people. I got in contact, I made jokes, people laughed, and they asked me if I was the same person. And this moment of forgiveness, that changed quite a lot. I wouldn't have been able to become a hypnotist or become freelance, self-employed to do this stuff without this moment of forgiveness.
Well, okay, I mean that is true. You can make some dramatic changes in people with hypnotherapy. I guess I'll draw a distinction when you're just a supervisor and you're working with somebody every day. You're not allowed to throw them in the chair and do therapy and forgiveness, and that's not allowed. But yeah, you're right. We can do some miracles. We can make some miracles using hypnosis with willing clients.
Perhaps another thing that if I look at what I used to do as a business consultant, I often describe it as something very similar that I do now with my clients. So I may have switched professions, but the essence of what I do is still the same. And I really love working with developing business processes, implementing them, helping business department, service department to come together. So I was very into that. I did a lot of extra hours in those times. At some point I didn't like the working conditions anymore, which didn't have to do with the work itself. It was just the conditions in which it happened. So perhaps that also coincides with what you said. Before I started hypnosis, I already was on a certain track. I was passionate for what I did, and then I just switched to a different horse. I switched saddle maybe, but it was basically very similar from the attitude, from the mindset. And when I talked to you, well, yesterday we saved the world again with our superpowers.
You have to thank us for that,
all hypnotic, but we won't go into detail again. You used to be passionate about what you did before, and you're passionate about what you do now. And perhaps that happens to you too. I sometimes am asked, how do you keep your motivation level up? Well, I don't know how I do it.
Well, I mean, good client outcomes are a big motivator. I mean, how many walks of life, how many jobs do you get feedback where someone says, "You changed my life"? I mean, you don't need to hear that too often to motivate you. That is amazing. And I mean, I never heard that in any of my other jobs. That was.
I never heard that before in my other jobs either.
Nobody ever said that to me. And they'd say nice things sometimes, and good job on that project, but nobody ever said, "You changed my life." That's a big deal. And you can change lives, and that's one of the great things about this. And I think that's what keeps up my motivation.
Now that you say that, I often tell my clients, when they come in one form, they come to the session, and they feel completely different, relieved, and whatever their positive feelings are. And I often say, that's why I do hypnosis. I never really realized that, that's how the motivation is kept up. But I must say, it's only since I have a certain amount of clients per week that I really feel this positive influence on me. Before that, when I had a lot fewer clients, it was more like hoping that the next session goes well.
Well, another thing is it's important to make a good living. If you're seeing lots of clients, then you're going to be more comfortable. It's tough for a new hypnotist when they're not making a lot of money, and if it's their full-time job, if they don't get clients, then they have to close the business, and that's it. And usually they don't go back. So I think it's an advantage to have enough clients so that you can have an ongoing business. And also, if you have lots of clients, then occasionally you can turn clients down. It's really bad if you're just starting your business and you really need to get some clients and someone comes in with something that you either don't feel qualified to work with, or you just don't want to work, or there's no rapport between you and that client, but you need that money, and so it forces you to work with somebody that maybe you should not be working with.
Yeah.
That's not good. I've had occasions where I've had to refer clients out or fire a client, because they just weren't, the relationship was such that they weren't doing the things that they needed to do to reach their goal, and they weren't going to. And it was nice to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to charge you for this session. What I really think is that it would be a lot better if you were to check in with one of my my colleagues. I think
before you continue there,
Yeah.
what do you think if we continue on the third Hypno-Talks about that topic?
Okay.
That we stop for now. I think we have over half an hour already.
Okay. Yeah.
And we continue in the Hypno-Talk 3, which is a fantastic thing that I had the great opportunity to have shown Michael Andrews in the first 3 Hypno-Talks.
It'll get better.
I won't tell you that I'm kind of proud of it, but that's the fact. So, see you again at the next Hypno-Talk.